Hello, I'm Philip Brunelle, Artistic Director and founder of Vocal Essence and organist choirmaster at Plymouth Congregational Church in Minneapolis. So today we're looking at the composer Johann Hermann Schein, born in 1586, died in 1630. Didn't live that long. And the interesting thing is that there are three composers in that era, all born within 1 year, and all of them whose names begin with S-C-H. So you always have this trio of Schein, Scheidt, and Schütz. And you have to sometimes be careful because though they are born in the same time, they're very different in style. I love the music of Schein, partly because not only was he, of course, a composer and a conductor, but he was fascinated by the music of the Italian Baroque at that era, which composers writing in Germany were fairly stolid and not necessarily looking to what was going on, which was much more ornamental in Italian Baroque. And so he brought that Italian Baroque idea into the German Lutheran context. He wrote a lot of music, which is a kind of a surprise considering he didn't live very long. He was a man with a lot of illness in his life. But of his music, half of it is sacred, half of it secular. He wrote it for both worship and for social gatherings. He also wrote dance suites, and he wrote instrumental music and sacred madrigals. He is known also because he was a predecessor to Johann Sebastian Bach at St. Thomas Church in Leipzig. Of his many pieces, I've selected two that give you, I think, an idea of the quality and wonder of this man. A piece that he wrote based on text from the Book of Lamentations, Zion spricht, which is that word, Zion speaks, the Lord has forsaken me. And so, of course, it's in minor, and you have these interesting concepts. You have the soprano alto divided into three parts, then you have the tenor bass, and they tend to go back and forth, but when they come together, there's a great grandeur that you don't get necessarily from the individual. So you have the women begin, and the men repeat. And then together. Then they go back, and again we have the men followed by the women, then they come together, and later on the text changes to those words that said, could any woman forget her most beloved child? And here the men begin that. And then the women. The men, the women, and then finally they come together. And then it ends up, yea, I will not forget thee, I will not forget thee, and off to the ending, and then individual voices begin, and finally they come to that very grand ending, huge, with the sopranos all the way up to high A. Schein also wrote a setting of Psalm 125, the one that says, "Those who with grieving sow will then with gladness harvest." It's wonderful how he does word painting. And again, that comes out of that Italian Baroque idea. So he begins with the words, "Those who begin weeping." And how do you create weeping? Well, one way with Schein was to go up in half steps. One voice starts, another voice does that, and he wonderfully keeps all of them moving, one after the other, with that weeping idea to begin it. Etc. All the voices begin. And then, as it said, their weeping will turn to joy, to the harvest. And to create that, a lot of big intervals, so that instead of just going, he goes for gladness, or so big intervals that show that sense of joy and happiness. So you get But then it goes back to those who go in weeping will come rejoicing again. And here he brings it. And then finally it says, with gladness. And he changes the meter and gets. And keeping that going, and finally at the end, I love this ending because you have the alto and the bass doing what we call a suspension. In other words, you have a note so that you have, let's say this. But in order to make it suspending, one starts and then the other comes in. So instead of at the same time, you have. While that's happening, the other three voices are going. So you put all that together and you have. And again. And then, as is typical in this period, you end by everyone at the same time singing the phrase one more time as kind of a grand chorale ending. Music of Johann Hermann Schein. Have a wonderful day.